The council chamber was quiet for the first time in hours. 14 different alien species sat in their designated seats, their faces showing worry and frustration. The holographic display in the center of the room showed a dying star system. 3 planets orbited around a neutron star that was falling apart, and 6 billion people lived on those planets. Ambassador Hyun-woo stood near the human delegation area, watching the display carefully. His silver hair caught the light from the hologram as he studied the numbers. 42 days. That was all the time left before the neutron star would collapse completely and destroy everything in the system. The Kelvar system had become a death trap. The neutron star was creating gravitational waves that made normal space travel impossible. Ships could not use their faster-than-light engines inside the system. Every plan the Council had discussed ended with billions of deaths. Chancellor Vixthar rose from his seat. His crystalline body reflected light in strange patterns as he moved. He was the leader of the Galactic Council, and his voice carried authority that made others listen. "We have debated for 6 hours," Vixthar said. His voice was cold and precise. "The mathematics are clear. We cannot save everyone. We must choose who lives and who dies." A reptilian delegate from the Sauric species stood up. His scales were dark green and his eyes were yellow. "I propose we abandon the outer planet. Save the 2 inner worlds. That gives us a chance to rescue 4 billion. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some delegates nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. A gaseous being from the Nephilim floated higher. Its form shifted and changed as it spoke. A lottery system would be fair. Random selection across all 3 planets. Mathematics show only 30% survival rate with current resources, clicked an insectoid Chitara delegate. Its mandibles moved rapidly as it calculated numbers in the air. Hyun-woo watched all of this silently. He knew what was coming. The council would vote soon. They would choose a plan that abandoned billions of people to their deaths. They would call it logical. They would call it necessary. He could not let that happen. Commander Ji-won appeared beside him as a hologram. She commanded the human fleet ship called the Indomitable. Her uniform was crisp and her expression was serious. "They are going to vote," she whispered to him. "Are you sure about this?" Hyun-woo nodded once. He had already made his decision. The voting was about to begin when Hyun-woo stood up. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the noise in the chamber like a knife. "Leave it to us." The chamber went silent. Every alien turned to look at the human ambassador. Chancellor Vixthar's crystalline features seemed to shimmer with something that might have been amusement. "Ambassador," Vixthar said slowly, "your species has been part of our galactic community for only 73 cycles. The greatest minds in this council have declared this task impossible. What makes you think humans can succeed where we cannot?" Hyun-woo met the Chancellor's gaze without flinching, because impossible is a word that has never stopped humanity before. "We will save all 6 billion, every single one." The chamber erupted. Some delegates laughed. Others hissed or made sounds of disbelief. A large red alien from the Saurics delegation stood and pointed at Hyun-woo. "This is arrogance. Humans will fail and die trying. They will make martyrs of themselves and help no one." But not everyone disagreed. A gentle being made of light, one of the Lumini, watched with interest. A warrior from the honor-bound Valkar species leaned forward in his seat. Chancellor Vixthar raised one crystalline hand, and the chamber quieted. He looked at Hyun-woo for a long moment. Then he spoke very well. "Humanity may attempt this rescue, but there are conditions. You must work alone. No council resources, no alien technology, no help from any other species. If you fail, humanity will bear the full responsibility. Your reputation in the galactic community will be destroyed forever." Vixthar paused. "Do you accept these terms?" Hyun-woo did not hesitate. "We accept." The hologram of Commander Ji-won flickered beside him. He could see the concern in her eyes, but also determination. She knew what this meant. Humanity would have to mobilize every ship, every resource, every person who could help. 42 days, Vixthar said. "The countdown begins now." The council session ended. Delegates filed out of the chamber, some shaking their heads, others whispering among themselves. A few looked at Hyun-woo with something like respect, but most seemed certain that humanity had just signed its own death warrant. When the chamber was nearly empty, Commander Ji-won's hologram remained. "You know the council expects us to fail, right?" she said quietly. Hyun-woo allowed himself a small smile. "Then we had better not disappoint them. Contact Earth, contact every human colony. Tell them we need everything. Every ship that can fly. Every person who can help. We have 42 days to do the impossible. Ji-won saluted. I will start mobilizing the fleet immediately. Her hologram disappeared. Hyun-woo stood alone in the council chamber for a moment. He looked at the holographic display still showing the dying Kelvar system. 6 billion lives hung in the balance. The greatest minds in the galaxy had called it impossible to save them all. But humanity had faced impossible odds before. They had crawled out of caves to reach the stars. They had survived wars, plagues, and disasters that should have ended their species. They had never accepted the word impossible. He would not start now. Far away, near Jupiter, human ships began to gather. The call had gone out across all human colonies and stations. The largest mobilization in human history was beginning. Captains prepared their ships. Engineers checked their systems. Medical teams gathered supplies. News of the mission spread like fire. The Kelvar system evacuation was not just a military operation. It was a promise. Humanity had told the galaxy to leave it to them. Now they had to prove they could keep that promise. In his quarters aboard Unity Prime Station, Hyun-woo looked at Earth on his view screen. The blue and green planet hung in space like a jewel. Somewhere down there, people were preparing. His species was getting ready to attempt the impossible. A message came through on his personal communicator. It was from his daughter on Earth. We heard what you did, Father. The whole planet is talking about it. People are volunteering faster than we can process them. Civilian ships are joining the fleet. Everyone wants to help. We are all with you. Hyun-woo felt a warmth in his chest. This was what made humanity special. Not their technology, not their weapons, but their refusal to abandon others in need. Their stubborn determination to do what was right no matter the cost. He sent a simple reply. Tell them we will not fail. Tell them humanity keeps its promises. Outside Unity Prime, alien observer ships took up positions. They were there to document the human attempt. Most expected to record a failure. Some hoped to see something different. The countdown had begun. 42 days to save 6 billion lives. 42 days to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. 42 days to show the galaxy that impossible was just another word for difficult. The evacuation of the Kelvar system was about to begin. 40 hours had passed since the council meeting. Captain Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of his transport ship, the Horizon's Promise, and watched the largest fleet he had ever seen. 847 ships filled the space around Jupiter. Some were military vessels. Many were civilian transports. A few were mining ships or cargo haulers that had volunteered for the mission. Never thought I would see something like this, his navigator said quietly. Dae-hyun nodded. He was a veteran captain with 20 years of experience, but even he felt overwhelmed by the scale of what they were attempting. Every ship represented people who had volunteered, crews who knew the danger but came anyway. On Earth, recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Engineers, doctors, pilots, and regular people who wanted to help. The news showed crowds gathering at spaceports, waiting for their chance to join the mission. Aboard the UNSC Indomitable, the command ship, a briefing was taking place. Commander Ji-won stood at the front of a room filled with captains and senior officers. Beside her were two scientists, Dr. Tae-yang and Dr. Min-ho, and a woman named Eun-ji, who had experience with disaster relief operations. The Kelvar system is a gravitational nightmare, Dr. Tae-yang explained. His young face was serious as he pointed to a three-dimensional map. Normal faster-than-light travel does not work inside. The neutron star creates interference that will tear apart any ship trying to use FTL drives. So how do we evacuate 6 billion people if we cannot use our fastest ships? Asked one captain. Dr. Min-ho stepped forward. We have developed a plan. It is dangerous and has never been attempted before, but our calculations show it can work. The plan appeared on the screens around the room. It was complex and bold. Instead of using FTL drives, they would create a relay chain. Ships would position themselves outside the interference zone and pass evacuees from vessel to vessel, like an old-fashioned bucket brigade. We will also build space bridges, Yoon-ji added, cables and tethers connecting orbital platforms to the planetary surfaces. This allows continuous evacuation streams instead of waiting for shuttles to go up and down. And we will use modified mining vessels, Chief Engineer So-jin said from her position near the back. She was known throughout the fleet for her unconventional solutions to problems. They will create controlled explosions to temporarily stabilize the gravitational chaos. This gives us windows to make shuttle runs. The room was silent as everyone absorbed the plan. Finally, a grizzled captain spoke up. What are our chances? Dr. Minho hesitated. Based on our calculations, there is a 34% chance of complete failure. Ship losses will be significant. Casualties are likely. Commander G1 stepped forward. Her voice was firm and confident. Then we make sure we are in the 66%. We train hard, we work smart, and we do not give up. Questions? There were many questions, but eventually the briefing ended. Captains returned to their ships with orders and assignments. The fleet would move into position within 12 hours. Outside the human fleet, alien observer ships maintained their distance. The Galactic Council had sent representatives to watch the human attempt. Most were there to document the failure they expected. But one observer, a young Prismara named Lix Ara, watched with genuine curiosity. She filed her first report to Chancellor Vixthar. Human approach appears chaotic but organized. Their plan violates several principles of safe evacuation doctrine. However, their determination factor is notable. We'll continue observation. The first wave of ships entered the Kelver system 5 days after the mission began. Captain Daehyun led his squadron through the gravitational turbulence. His ship shook and groaned as invisible forces pulled at the hull. Shields holding at 70%, his engineer reported. Keep us steady, Daehyun ordered. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations. Someone was singing an old Earth song quietly. It helped keep morale up. They reached the first planet and began coordinating with the surface. Coordinator Unji had already made contact with the Kelvar people. She worked through translators to organize evacuation priorities. The Kelvar were frightened but hopeful. They had heard about the humans who refused to give up. The first shuttles descended to the surface. They loaded refugees and returned to orbit. The space bridges were deployed, long cables stretching from orbital platforms down to the planet. People could be moved continuously now, flowing upward like water being pumped. Back at the relay chain, ships waited in position. As shuttles arrived with evacuees, they transferred people to the larger transports. Those transports moved to the next ship in the chain. It was slow but steady work. Chief Engineer Sojin worked without stopping. She modified cargo bays to hold more people. She redesigned life support systems to handle larger loads. After 30 hours of continuous work, someone found her asleep at her workstation. They let her rest for 15 minutes before gently waking her. There was too much work to do. On day 7, the first major crisis hit. A gravitational surge, stronger than predicted, collapsed one of the orbital tether stations. The structure broke apart, sending debris spinning through space. 17 human crew members died instantly. A shuttle carrying 300 Kelvar refugees was caught in the debris field. We are losing them, someone shouted on the communication channel. Captain Daehyun did not hesitate. All ships, this is Horizon's promise. I am going in. Captain, that is suicide, his navigator protested. The debris field is too dense. Then plot me a course anyway, Jiho, Daehyun said calmly. Those people need help now. The young navigator named Jiho bent over his console. His fingers moved rapidly across the controls. This should not be possible, he muttered. But I think I have something. It is going to be close. The Horizon's promise dove into the debris field. Chunks of metal spun past the ship's hull. Alarms blared. The shields flickered and sparked. But Jiho's navigation was perfect. They threaded through the wreckage like a needle through cloth. The damaged shuttle came into view. It was tumbling, its engines dead. Daehyun activated the tractor beam. Grab them! The beam locked onto the shuttle. The Horizon's promise shuddered from the strain. Metal groaned. But they held on. Slowly, carefully. They pulled the shuttle free of the debris field. All 300 refugees were saved. The Horizon's promise, however, was heavily damaged. Scorch marks covered the hull. 2 of the engine pods were barely functioning. When asked why he risked his ship and crew, Daehyun's answer was simple. Because that is what humans do. We do not leave people behind. The alien observers watched all of this. Lixara filed another report. Human methodology appears to prioritize individual life over statistical efficiency. They take risks that no other species would consider. Probability of mission success remains low, but their resilience factor may be incalculable. Some of the other alien observers were starting to feel differently about the humans. A Lumini medical ship quietly approached one of the human vessels and donated medical supplies. The human captain was surprised but grateful. "Why are you helping us?" the human asked. The council said we must work alone. The Lumini captain's response was soft. "The council ordered us to observe. They did not order us to be heartless. Your people are doing something noble. We wish to help even if only a little." 5 days became 10. 10 became 15. The evacuation continued at a steady pace. 2 million people had been saved so far. It was a significant number, but barely a fraction of what was needed. The crews were exhausted. They worked in shifts measured in hours instead of days. Medical teams treated injuries and exhaustion. Engineers performed impossible repairs. Pilots flew missions that should have killed them but somehow survived. And always the countdown continued. Time was running out. The neutron star was becoming more unstable. The gravitational anomalies were getting worse. Ships were struggling more with each passing day, but humanity did not stop. They could not stop. They had made a promise to the galaxy. "Leave it to us," they had said. Now they had to prove those words meant something. On the Indomitable, Commander G1 looked at the status reports. The numbers were tight. Too tight. They were behind schedule. At this rate, they would not evacuate everyone in time. "Get me all senior staff," she ordered. "We need to revise our approach. We need to move faster." Engineer Sojin arrived first. She looked tired but determined. "I have some ideas," she said. "They are dangerous, but they might work." Dr. Tae Yang and Dr. Minho came next, followed by the other key personnel. They gathered around the holographic display showing the Kelvar system. "We are not moving fast enough," G1 said bluntly. "We need solutions. We need them now." The meeting lasted 4 hours. Ideas were proposed, debated, and refined. By the end, they had a new plan. It was even more dangerous than the first, but it would increase their evacuation rate significantly. "Let us hope this works," Dr. Minho said quietly. Commander G1 looked at each person in the room. "It will work. Because failure is not an option. Get some rest. We implement the new plan in 6 hours." Outside, in the cold darkness of space, the human fleet continued its work. Ships moved through the gravitational chaos. Shuttles ferried refugees to safety. Engineers performed miracles with spare parts and determination. And the galaxy watched, still expecting humanity to fail. Day 24 started badly and got worse. The neutron star's collapse was accelerating. What should have been 42 days was now only 36. The scientists had miscalculated. The gravitational anomalies were intensifying faster than predicted. Dr. Tae Yang stared at his screens in horror. "The innermost planet, Kelvar Prime, will tear itself apart in 10 days. Not 20, 10 days. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Commander G1 received the report in silence. 2 million evacuees saved, 4 billion still waiting. The math was terrible. At their current rate, they would save maybe half, maybe less. "Get me Ambassador Hyunwoo," she ordered. At Unity Prime Station, the Galactic Council was already convening an emergency session. Chancellor Vixthar stood before the assembly with something that looked like satisfaction in his crystalline features. "The human experiment has failed," he announced. "They cannot save everyone. We must intervene now to preserve as many lives as possible." Ambassador Hyunwoo stood up. He looked tired. Dark circles showed under his eyes. But his voice was firm. "We are not done yet." "Ambassador, please," Vixthar said with false sympathy. "Your people have tried admirably, but the mathematics are clear. You cannot achieve the impossible. Let us help. Let us save who we can." "And how many would you save?" Hyunwoo asked. "Perhaps 400 million. It is tragic, but it is realistic. That leaves 4 billion to die. We said we would save everyone. That promise stands." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some delegates supported ending the human mission. Others urged patience. The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, in the Kelvar system, disaster struck. A massive gravitational wave swept through space without warning. It hit the human fleet like a hammer. 5 ships were caught in the wave and torn apart. The explosions lit up the darkness. Captain Daehyun watched in horror from the horizon's promise. "Get me casualty reports." The numbers came in slowly. 127 crew members dead. Thousands of evacuees aboard those ships also gone. It was the worst single loss since the mission began. Across the fleet, ships reported damage. Communications were chaotic. Several vessels were drifting, their systems offline. The carefully organized evacuation ground to a halt. Multiple ships requesting permission to withdraw, reported the communications officer on the Indomitable. Crews are exhausted. Systems are failing. They say they cannot continue. Commander Jiwon stood in the center of her bridge. Around her, officers waited for orders. Everyone was looking at her. The mission was collapsing. The fleet was breaking. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. Every ship, every crew member. Thousands of people would hear what she said next. This is Commander Jiwon to all vessels. Her voice was steady despite the chaos. I know you are exhausted. I know we lost friends today. I know the numbers say this is impossible, but has that ever stopped us before? She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity did not reach the stars by accepting the word impossible. We are not leaving anyone behind. We will break every rule, push every limit, perform every miracle necessary, not because it is easy, not because it is safe, but because it is right. Another pause. All ships, stand down your withdrawal requests. We have work to do. Across the fleet, something shifted. Exhausted crews returned to their stations. Captains canceled their withdrawal requests. Engineers found energy reserves they did not know they had. The fleet held together, but the problems kept coming. Supply lines were stretched beyond breaking. Ships were running low on fuel, medical supplies, and even food. 3 human transport ships suffered critical drive failures and were stranded in the interference zone, unable to escape. Chief Engineer So Jin studied the problem for hours. The stranded ships could not restart their drives. The gravitational interference was too strong. Rescue ships could not reach them safely. I have an idea, she finally said to Dr. Minho. It is insane. It probably will not work. But it is all I have. Tell me, he said. We daisy-chain the stranded ship's power cores. Create a temporary field that might let them jump to FTL for just a few seconds. It violates 3 laws of physics. Dr. Minho looked at the calculations. This is theoretically impossible. So Jin smiled grimly. Good. Then no one will expect it to work. I am going in. What? Someone needs to install the modifications manually. The stranded ships do not have the expertise, so I'm taking a small crew and going in. Dr. Minho tried to argue, but So-Jin was already assembling her team. 6 engineers volunteered immediately. They knew it was dangerous. They went anyway. The small engineering vessel dove into the interference zone. Gravitational forces twisted space around them. Alarms screamed warnings, but they reached the first stranded ship and docked. For 8 hours, So-Jin and her team worked in near-impossible conditions. They rewired power cores. They jury-rigged connections that should not exist. They created something that textbooks said was impossible. Testing now, So-Jin reported. Her voice was tense. The modified power core activated. For 3 seconds, the stranded ship had functional FTL capability. 3 seconds was enough. The ship jumped to safety outside the interference zone. It worked. Against all odds, So-Jin's impossible solution worked. They repeated the process with the other 2 ships. All 3 vessels and their crews were saved. More importantly, So-Jin's technique could be adapted. Engineers across the fleet studied her modifications. Within days, they were creating temporary stable corridors through the worst gravitational zones. The evacuation rate doubled. On Kelvar Prime, Coordinator Yunji faced her own crisis. The planet was tearing itself apart. The ground shook constantly. Volcanoes erupted. The sky was dark with ash, and the people were starting to panic. Riots broke out at evacuation centers. Thousands of Kelvar pushed and fought, desperate to escape. The orderly evacuation was collapsing into chaos. People were being trampled. Children were separated from parents. Yunji made a decision. Against all advice, she went down to the surface herself. She walked into the middle of the largest riot. Human security teams tried to stop her. She ignored them. A Kelvar official grabbed her arm. You should not be here. It is too dangerous. I need translators, Yunji said calmly. Amplify my voice now. Within minutes, she stood on a platform above the crowd. Thousands of frightened Kelvar looked up at her. Her voice, translated into their language, echoed across the evacuation center. I am Coordinator Yunji. I am human, and I'm making you a promise right now. Every single one of you will leave this planet alive. I guarantee it with my life, the crowd quieted. They stared at this small human woman who stood before them without fear. We have 40 human ships in orbit right now, Yunji continued. More are coming. We will not stop until every person here is safe. But we need your help. We need you to trust us. We need you to be patient and orderly. Can you do that? Slowly, the crowd began to calm. Families held each other. The pushing stopped. Order returned to the evacuation center. Eunji stayed on the surface for 3 days, coordinating and reassuring people. Her presence made a difference, but time was running out. Dr. Tae-yang discovered a new problem. The neutron star's collapse was creating micro-wormholes. These were tears in space that appeared randomly and destroyed anything they touched. A shuttle full of refugees flew through one. The wormhole appeared for less than a second. The shuttle was simply gone. 200 lives ended in an instant. We need a way to predict them, Tae-yang said desperately. He worked for 60 hours straight, building mathematical models, running simulations. His team brought him food and forced him to sleep in short intervals. Finally, he had it. A prediction model that could give them a few seconds of warning. It was not perfect, but it was better than nothing. The model was uploaded to every ship's navigation system. On Unity Prime, the Galactic Council reconvened. Chancellor Vixthar demanded that the human mission be ended. They are losing crew members. Losing evacuees. It is time to admit defeat and let the Council take over. Ambassador Hyunwoo looked at the Chancellor with steady eyes. We are not done yet. We have saved 2 million lives. We will save 4 billion more. Give us the time we were promised. You are running out of time, Vixthar said coldly. Then we will work faster. Among the alien observers, opinions were changing. Lixara, the young Prismara, filed reports that grew increasingly detailed. She documented how human crews worked past the point of collapse, how engineers created solutions that violated known science, how coordinators like Yunji brought order from chaos through simple determination. Some aliens were no longer just watching. A Lumini medical ship expanded its help, sending supplies to multiple human vessels. A Valkar warrior captain sent a message to Commander Jiwon. Your crews fight with honor. You have our respect. Even some of the younger Prismara scientists began offering computational assistance, fascinated by the human approach to impossible problems. But the mission was still failing. The numbers did not lie. With 10 days left, 4 billion people still needed evacuation. The human fleet was battered, exhausted, and running on empty. Captain Dae-hyun sat in his captain's chair aboard the barely functional Horizon's Promise. His ship shook as another gravitational wave passed through the system. Engineering, what is our status? Hull integrity at 40%. Engines barely functional. Life support marginal. Day 30 arrived with terrible news. Kelvar Prime was dying faster than anyone predicted. The planet's crust cracked open, creating massive fissures that swallowed entire cities. Lava flowed across the surface. The sky glowed red from the heat. 1.8 billion people still needed rescue from the 3 planets. Time was almost gone. Dr. Tae-yang and engineer So-jin had been working together for days on a desperate solution. They combined Tae-yang's wormhole predictions with So-jin's power redistribution techniques. The result was something that should not exist: a network of safe corridors through the gravitational chaos. These lanes will stay stable for maybe 3 minutes each, Tae-yang explained to Commander Jiwon. Then they collapse and new ones form. We can predict where they will appear seconds before they do. 3 minutes is not much time, Jiwon said. It is better than nothing, So-jin replied. And if we use these lanes, we can triple our evacuation rate. Then we use them. Send the data to all ships immediately. The new technique changed everything. Ships could now navigate through the worst zones of the Kelvar system. Shuttles made runs that would have been suicide before. The evacuation accelerated dramatically. But then Chancellor Vixthar made his move. On day 30, he broadcast across all channels. The Galactic Council will mercifully intervene to save as many Kelvar refugees as possible. We calculate that 400 million additional lives can be preserved using Council resources. Humanity has fought bravely but must now accept reality. Ambassador Hyunwoo's response was immediate and broadcast just as widely. We do not need your mercy. We need you to stay out of our way. The audacity shocked the Council. Vixthar's crystalline body flared with anger. You dare refuse Council assistance? Very well. Stand down your operations within 12 hours or face sanctions against all of humanity. No, Hyunwoo said simply. We made a promise. We keep our promises. The galaxy watched this confrontation with amazement. A young species defying the ancient authority of the Council. Most expected the humans to be crushed, but something else happened instead. Ships began arriving in the Kelvar system. Hundreds of them. These were not military vessels. They were civilian ships from across human space. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining vessels, even private yachts. Anything that could carry people. A grizzled freighter captain named Sang Woo brought his ship to the Indomitable. His vessel was old and battered but functional. "Heard you needed help," he said simply. "This is dangerous work," Commander Jiwan warned him. "You could die," Sang Woo shrugged. "Saw the news. Those people need help. I am human. That is reason enough. Where do you want me?" Within hours, the human fleet grew by 300 vessels. They were not designed for rescue work. Many had never left their home systems before. But their crews volunteered anyway because it was the right thing to do. The evacuation rate tripled again. On Kelvar Prime, Captain Daehyun received an emergency call. A pocket of 50,000 refugees was trapped on an island. Volcanic eruptions surrounded them. The only way in was through a thermal column that would melt any ship trying to fly through it. His crew looked at him. The Horizon's promise was barely holding together. This run would almost certainly destroy the ship. "Everyone understand what this means?" Daehyun asked. His engineer spoke first. "Those people need help." His navigator added, "We did not come this far to leave them behind." The crew voted. It was unanimous. They would make the run. The Horizon's promise dove toward Kelvar Prime. The thermal column was like flying through fire. The hull began to melt. Environmental systems failed. Alarm screamed. But Daehyun kept the ship steady. They reached the island and landed. 50,000 frightened Kelvar refugees rushed aboard. The crew packed them into every available space. Cargo bays, hallways. Even the bridge had people standing in corners. "Everyone aboard," reported his engineer. "Structural integrity at 3%. Then let us get them home," Daehyun said calmly. The ship struggled back into orbit. Metal groaned and twisted. But they made it to the relay point and transferred every refugee safely. The Horizon's promise would never fly again. But as Daehyun told his crew, she was a good ship. Her last act saved 50,000 lives. That is a good way to go. Coordinator Yoonji continued her work on the surface. She had organized the evacuation of entire continents. Her system was simple but effective. She treated every life as equally important. No priorities based on wealth or status. First come, first served. Everyone got out. When a Kelvar official argued that their scientists and leaders should evacuate first, Yoonji's response was sharp. "We save everyone or we save no one. There are no special cases. Choose." The official chose to follow her system. Dr. Taeyang made another breakthrough. By analyzing the micro-wormhole patterns more carefully, he found they were not random. They followed a rhythm based on the neutron star's rotation. This meant he could predict their appearance minutes in advance instead of seconds. "Send this to every ship," he told his team. "This will save lives." Engineer So-jin continued to work miracles. At one point, a critical power relay failed on a rescue ship. They had no replacement parts. So-jin studied the problem for 10 minutes, then grabbed a coffee maker and a personal data pad. "You are joking," another engineer said. "Watch and learn," So-jin replied. She took components from both devices and somehow created a working power relay. It held for exactly as long as needed. The alien observers were no longer just watching. Young members of various species began actively helping the human effort, defying council orders. Lumini medical ships set up triage stations outside the interference zone. Valkar warriors volunteered for dangerous surface rescues, their strength and courage making difficult missions possible. Even some young Prismara scientists offered their advanced computational abilities to help coordinate the massive logistics. Chancellor Vixithar was furious, but his authority was cracking. The younger generation of galactic citizens saw what humanity was doing and wanted to help. For the first time in centuries, the Council faced open defiance from its own people. Lixara, the young Prismara observer, filed her most important report. Humanity operates on principles that defy traditional understanding. They risk much for little statistical gain. They refuse to accept mathematical inevitability. They view impossible as merely difficult. If they succeed, The Council must completely revise our understanding of what drives success in crisis scenarios. Day 33 arrived. 800 million people still needed evacuation. Kelvar Prime was hours from complete destruction. The math still said it was impossible. Commander Ji-Wan made the most important decision of her career. She opened a channel to every ship in the fleet. All vessels, this is Ji-Wan. We are abandoning the relay chain. Every ship with FTL capability will make direct runs into the system. Load as many people as you can physically fit. Ignore safety margins. Ignore regulations. Pack them into cargo bays, hallways, anywhere they fit. Commander, that is extremely dangerous, one captain protested. Ships not designed for the gravitational stress will be damaged or destroyed. I know, Ji-Wan said quietly. But it is the only way to evacuate 800 million people in 3 days. All ships. We are going in. It was the most audacious decision of the entire mission. Ships designed for safe zones would enter the deadliest environment in the galaxy. Casualties would be high. But there was no other choice. The fleet moved forward as one. Hundreds of ships dove into the Kelvar system. They swarmed the 3 dying planets like determined insects. Shuttles flew constantly. People packed into every available space. Ships loaded far beyond their design capacity and struggled back to safety. Some ships were destroyed by gravitational waves. Some were caught by micro-wormholes. Brave crews died, but the momentum was unstoppable. A civilian cargo captain pushed his ship to 150% capacity. The vessel groaned and shuddered, but he got everyone out safely. A medical transport turned its entire medical bay into refugee housing, treating patients in the hallways instead. A mining vessel used its ore containers to carry people. Rigging temporary life support in spaces never meant for living beings. Humanity was doing the impossible through sheer determination and courage. On day 35, with hours remaining before the neutron star's final collapse, the last shuttle lifted off from Kelvar Prime. The pilot was a young officer named Ji-Wan. His shuttle carried 847 refugees, including a mother who had given birth during the evacuation. Her baby was wrapped in a blanket made from a crew member's jacket. All passengers secured, Ji-Wan reported.
Heading for the exit corridor. Behind him, Kelvar Prime began to tear itself apart.
The planet was dying, but it was empty. Every person had been evacuated. Ji-Wan's shuttle raced through the collapsing system. Gravitational waves tossed them around. Alarm screamed. The mother held her newborn close and whispered prayers. They cleared the system boundary 17 minutes before the shockwave hit. Ji-Wan took a deep breath and smiled. Welcome to safety, everyone. You are going to be all right. Across the fleet, reports came in from every ship. The final count was calculated and recalculated. Commander Ji-Wan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and stared at the number in disbelief. 6,100,000,000 evacuees. The Kelvar system died in silence. The 3 planets were torn apart and pulled into the collapsing neutron star. Billions of tons of rock and metal spiraled into the stellar grave. Where a civilization had lived for thousands of years, there was now only destruction. But the grave was empty. Every person who had called those planets home was alive and safe. Commander Ji-Wan stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable and watched the destruction from a safe distance. Around her, human ships floated in formation, battered and damaged but victorious. The fleet looked like it had been through a war. Many ships were held together with emergency patches. Some had to be towed because their engines no longer worked. The cost had been high. 38 ships destroyed. 1,247 crew members killed in action. Countless others injured. The economic cost to humanity was staggering. Decades of resources spent in weeks, but 6,100,000,000 people were alive. That was what mattered. A communication came through from Ambassador Hyunwoo. Commander, the Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They want to see you. And me. Should be interesting. Ji-Wan replied. 7 days after the evacuation ended, the council chamber on Unity Prime Station was packed. Representatives from all member species were present. Observer delegations from non-aligned worlds had also arrived. The news of humanity's achievement had spread across the galaxy. Chancellor Vixthar stood at his position. His crystalline body seemed dimmer than usual. When he spoke, his voice carried less authority than before. The Galactic Council acknowledges that humanity has accomplished what we deemed impossible. Their methods were unorthodox and dangerous. They violated established protocols and safety regulations, yet they succeeded where our greatest minds predicted failure. He paused. The chamber was silent. The Council must acknowledge that we erred in our assessment, not merely of this mission but of humanity itself. Ambassador Hyunwoo was granted permission to speak. He stood and faced the assembled delegates. His speech was broadcast to billions across the galaxy. We did not save those people to prove something to this council. We did not do it for glory or recognition. We did it because it was the right thing to do. In our culture, we have a saying, leave no one behind. Every species here has their own strengths and gifts. Humanity's gift is simple. We do not accept the word impossible when lives are at stake. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various delegates. The galaxy calculates acceptable losses. We understand the logic, but humanity operates on a different principle. If there is even a 1% chance to save everyone, we take it. Not because it is logical, because it is human. The chamber remained quiet as his words sank in. Then slowly the Valkar delegation stood. Their speaker, a large warrior with scars covering his face, spoke with respect. The Valkar people recognize courage and honor. The human warriors have demonstrated both. We offer a formal alliance. Your people have earned our eternal respect. Other delegations began to stand. The Lumini. The younger members of various species. Even some of the older, more traditional species showed signs of respect. Lixara, the young Prismara observer who had documented the entire mission, presented her full report to the council. It was detailed and comprehensive. Her conclusion challenged centuries of galactic thinking. Humanity's approach appears inefficient by traditional measurements, yet it produces superior outcomes. They prioritize determination over calculation, hope over statistics. This human factor may represent an evolutionary advantage we failed to recognize in our assessment protocols. Her report became the most read document in council history. Universities across the galaxy began studying it. The old certainties that had governed galactic civilization for millennia were being questioned. The Kelvar refugees were resettled across dozens of human colonies. The integration process was challenging but successful. Many Kelvar spoke of their gratitude with tears in their eyes. They told stories of human crew members who worked until they collapsed, of captains who risked everything for strangers, of a species that refused to leave anyone behind. A Kelvar elder named Tarvin gave an interview that was broadcast across the galaxy. We heard the phrase "leave it to us" and feared it was arrogance. We learned it was a promise. Humans make promises they intend to keep. They do not abandon those in need. The galaxy would do well to learn from their example. The individuals who made the mission successful returned to their lives, forever changed by what they had accomplished. Captain Daehyun's ship, the Horizon's Promise, was damaged beyond repair. It was decommissioned with full honors, its name recorded in the history of great vessels. Daehyun was offered command of a new ship but requested something different. "I want to train the next generation," he told his superiors. "Someone needs to teach young captains that impossible just means difficult." He became an instructor at the Fleet Academy. His first lesson to every new class was simple. You will face situations where the numbers say you cannot win. You will be told something is impossible. Remember the Kelvar system. Remember that humans do not accept impossible. Engineer So-jin became the youngest recipient of the Stellar Innovation Prize, her jury-rigged solutions during the evacuation were studied by engineers across the galaxy. When asked about her achievements, she shrugged. "I just did what needed to be done. Any human engineer would have done the same. We do not give up. We find solutions." Her techniques were incorporated into standard engineering training across human space and beyond. Coordinator. Hyunji worked with the Kelvar refugees to establish new communities on human worlds. She later wrote a manual on large-scale disaster coordination that became required reading at military academies. Her core principle was simple. Logistics matter, but compassion matters more. Dr. Tae Yang and Dr. Minho continued their research into gravitational anomalies and spatial phenomena. Their work opened entire new fields of study, but they were more proud of the practical application. The lives saved mattered more than scientific. Recognition. Commander Ji-won was promoted to admiral and given command of the newly formed Humanitarian Response Fleet. This permanent force was dedicated to crisis response across human space. Her first order to her crews was direct. We train for the impossible because that is what we will be asked to do. When someone says it cannot be done, we prove them wrong. Ambassador Hyunwoo remained humanity's voice in the Galactic Council, but now he commanded genuine respect. His simple phrase, "Leave it to us," had become something of a galactic phenomenon. It was used as shorthand for human determination and capability. He received a message from his daughter on Earth months after the evacuation. "Father, you have changed how the galaxy sees us. But more importantly, you reminded us of who we are. We are the species that does not give up. That helps others. That keeps promises. Thank you for showing everyone what humanity means." The Kelvar evacuation, as it became known, fundamentally altered galactic civilization in several ways. The Galactic Council revised its crisis response protocols. The concept of acceptable losses was challenged. New protocols incorporated what was called the human approach. Exhaust all possibilities before accepting failure. Value every life equally. Determination matters as much as calculation. Humanity was upgraded from probationary status to full membership in the galactic community. More importantly, the criteria for assessing species were changed. Qualities like determination, adaptability, and compassion were given equal weight to technological advancement and military power. Human culture began spreading across the galaxy. Music, literature, and philosophy found audiences among alien species. The celebration of human resilience and determination resonated with others. Younger generations of various species began adopting human attitudes about facing challenges. 6 months after the evacuation, another crisis emerged. A plague threatened a distant world. The response was different this time. Multiple species volunteered immediately. They applied lessons learned from watching humans. They refused to accept that millions had to die. The galaxy was learning. Compassion and determination were not weaknesses. They were strengths that could accomplish the impossible. 1 year after the evacuation, a memorial was erected in orbit where the Kelvar system once existed. It was a joint effort. Human and alien engineers working together. The monument listed the names of every crew member who died during the mission. At the dedication ceremony, representatives from dozens of species gathered. The young Kelvar girl born during the evacuation was brought forward. Her name was Hyuna, given in honor of the ambassador who made the promise. She placed a symbolic wreath at the memorial. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood with Admiral Jiwon, Captain Daehyun, and the other heroes of the evacuation. They watched as aliens and humans stood together, honoring the sacrifice. "Do you think they finally understand?" Jiwon asked quietly. Hyunwoo watched as Lixara, the young Prismara who had documented everything, spoke with a group of human cadets. Their conversation was animated and hopeful. "Some do, others will. Change does not happen instantly, but we showed them something important. That impossible is just an excuse, not a reality." Daehyun, standing nearby, added with his characteristic humor, "Besides, if we had listened to the word impossible,